Grand evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, September 30th, 2025. It is 2100 hours in the evening, and we have some quite a little bit of emergency breaking news that has developed recently. Trying to figure out where we're going to start here. Um, yeah, right here. This was from yesterday. I believe we may have covered this last part, but we have Denmark. They're calling up soldiers urgently from the reserve. So Denmark is preparing very much so, as many other European countries are all throughout Europe. Let me check my audio real quick. Okay, this is as always, a live stream recording initially that is posted to the YouTube channel. All right, continuing on with the news here. This is probably the largest bit of breaking news tonight, um, from the last day or so. So, the Venezuela president Maduro has declared a state of emergency over the feared U.S. aggression, as he calls it. So, Venezuela, especially the president there, since he's very connected to the cartels and has really destroyed that country quite a bit. It's a socialist nightmare over there. It is not not a good place to live right now because of what the government has done there, and it is a very difficult life to live in Venezuela right now. That'll change real soon. And then we have the Secretary of the Department of War, Pete Hegseth, has told the top generals in Quantico earlier today to prepare for war, he said. He also said, not because we want war, because we want peace. I have it tattooed on my left arm. It says, Si vis pacem parabellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. It's an ancient saying I believe the Romans came up with thousands of years, about 1,000 years ago, maybe more. That's just the way these things go most of the time. There has to be war sometimes in order for there to be peace in the end. That's what is happening with this whole World War III situation. Yeah, there's going to be total war, the largest war humanity has had in many thousands of years, if not ever before. And that's just the way that is going right now. Let's see here. Okay. President Trump, this is also part of the code black here tonight. President Trump has ordered the attack on Venezuela. President Trump says the military will go after the cartels in Venezuela by land. So thousands of Marines, probably Navy SEALs, lots of aircraft, those F-35s, about 10 of them. They're all going to do this land invasion on Venezuela. That is confirmed. That is likely going to happen any day, most likely this week. I don't believe the U.S. military is going to give Venezuela more time to prepare. That's going to be that could be happening right now or some other time this week. I do not believe that's going to go beyond this week. President Trump has given the order to attack Venezuela by land. So that means thousands of Marines, and this is a certainty, will be doing amphibious landings onto Venezuela and dealing with the cartels and whatever other forces the Venezuelan government puts in the way. That is historic, huge code black breaking news there. This will be one of the largest land invasions since World War II, I would say. I can't think of another time uh, that that has happened on probably the scale that it is at right now. Uh, I believe World War II was the only other time there was that large of a scale of a land invasion into a country that has happened. Huge news. The U.S. is going to war in Venezuela. This is also tremendous news. There is a critical situation at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. The station is in an emergency state. It is disconnected from the power supply. One of the largest generators has already failed. This is a threat to everyone, said Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. Zaporizhia nuclear power plant is a one of the largest it's one of the largest nuclear power plants in the world. So I believe there's 6 reactors. They're saying one of the generators has already failed there. I also heard that that nuclear power plant is running on diesel right now. Um, they said right there, it is disconnected from the power supply. Uh, if this place melts down, it will cause a total radiological disaster far larger than Chernobyl. I believe it's 6 times the size of Chernobyl. It's a much larger nuclear power plant. Um, and it will also spread, which would cause radiation and fallout to spread all throughout Ukraine and even parts of Europe. I'm not sure if it would go into the atmosphere and hit parts of the United States. It would be a massive radiological disaster. It's seeming like it's a matter of time before that happens. That's a huge situation. That's about to be one of the largest disasters the world has ever seen if that melts down over there. And what's interesting is Russia has been attacking that area, Zaporizhia, in recent days. They've been doing all kinds of strikes near it. I believe that's how that happened, is because of all these Russian strikes on that location. Okay, just checking my audio again. I had quite a audio problem recently. That was not good. So the US Senate has adjourned for the night. The government shuts down at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time. So just after midnight tonight the government will shut down. It's been a while since that's happened. I can't exactly remember the last time it has. It has happened before. It's not a good thing. A lot of people are not going to be getting food assistance. Um, A lot of federal forces are not going to be paid, like the National Guard. Over 100,000 employees already in the government have been fired. I believe it's expected maybe a few hundred more thousand may be fired too, because of that. It's quite a situation. We're going to see the exact outcome of this government shutdown and if it's going to turn back on soon. I believe the longest one went beyond a month. Uh, we'll see how long it stays shut down and the effects it all has. That's huge news for this country, the United States. Norway has joined a coalition of nations in Europe that includes the Netherlands, France, Germany, Sweden, and Ukraine, who have deployed counter drone assets and personnel to Denmark ahead of this week's European Union summit in Copenhagen, which will take place over October 1st and 2nd. So, all those nations and Denmark, of course, are very much on edge for the Russian threat with all these drones when it for this European Union summit that's coming up in Copenhagen. So we'll see if something happens during that time. That means all these nations came together. Counter drone assets are like anti drone technology. So if Russia sends something in, uh, the counter drone assets and the personnel will shoot down those drones. And that's how things could really escalate. Is if Russia thinks they could just do that and one of these countries like Germany shoots it down, it'll be total war with Russia. It would be NATO and Russia totally at war. Russia's waiting for this to happen. If Russia wants to, they could send a drone near there and it gets shot down, and that's it. The total kinetic phase of World War III. Russia's pretty much asking for further war right now. It'll give them justification to move into the Baltic states and wherever else they want to. So we'll see exactly what happens with that. Uh, as for that meeting that happened earlier, I believe that it was mainly about martial law, what the U.S. military, such as those generals and admirals, will have to do when it really hits the fan, when we're at a direct kinetic phase with Russia. Um, and then following after that would be China, Iran, North Korea, the East versus West war. That's for sure what a major part of that meeting was about. They had parts of that meeting that were not all entirely public. Uh, I didn't watch what happened with it earlier. I've seen some of the news coming out about it, such as the Secretary of War coming out and raising the standards for especially uh, the males that are part of the U.S. military. He's raised the standards to the highest, even for the generals. So the generals and the admirals have to maintain full physical fitness uh, during their time in service. They should be shining examples to the lower ranks, those under them and around them. Generals and admirals shouldn't sit around like uh, a lot of police officers eating donuts all day and not able to run a mile. So that's great that the U.S. military is going to be at the highest of standards and not going to just sit around, be too sedentary, and deteriorate. Uh, Pete Hegseth was clearly insulted by the condition the generals and admirals were in. Somehow it's been allowed that they were allowed to get heavier and have a reduced level of physical training and fitness. Most of the military has something they call PT, physical tests that they have once certain times of the year. It's usually a few times. I believe at least twice. They have what do they call it? They have PFTs. Yes, physical fitness test. They have to do PT, physical training, all the time. They should be, but they have physical fitness tests, PFTs, about twice a year, if I remember correctly. And even before that, they have like half as difficult ISTs. And I mean, I think it's IFT. It's been a while. Anyway, those are some of they have to keep at a very high physical fitness level. So it's great to see overall that these generals and admirals are going to be physically fit and not deteriorating and becoming obese while they're in service in the military. They have to keep the height and physical standards now as they should be. So we'll see what happens with this war in Venezuela that's coming up. That's absolutely historic. We'll see how the United States handles that, how the economy does, and we'll see if Russia does anything during this European Union summit coming up in, I believe, a day or two. That is, yep, that's Wednesday and Thursday is that European Union summit in Copenhagen. So we'll see what happens with all that. Keep on prepping, learn new preparedness skills, practice the ones you do know. And I always recommend physical assets, though it is your own decision. Gold, silver, land, food, especially storable food and freeze dried food, and ammunition. Those assets will always hold their value. They will always have worth and value, and they're amazing to have. I will be back soon with further updates, probably tomorrow, as all these major events are going on. Um, Please like, comment, and subscribe. Donate if you will. I put that link in the description. And thanks for watching. Love, light, and blessings.